Hey, what's up guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. So today, we're going to be talking about inspiration. Where does it come from? Who to be inspired by, right? What inspiration is good, what inspiration is bad, right? I mean, sometimes it's like, you could argue that there is no bad inspiration, but sometimes you could be looking in the wrong places, right? But yeah, so we're going to be talking about inspiration, but before we start the video, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my prints and Patreon if you want to support the channel, and with that, let's get into this. So, inspiration. Most people, when they look into inspiration, they're going to look at other artists that they like, right? Maybe they like a finish, right? Maybe they like the way they do the colors and stuff like that, and that's all good, you know what I mean? And that's usually how artists will start inspiration, right? Or start getting inspired, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly healthy, and in most cases you're gonna want to emulate an artist, right? Though I would say that at a certain point your inspiration needs to come from yourself, obviously, but more importantly, like the world around you, okay, right? Because those artists that you love and that you are inspired by, of course they're inspired by other artists, but they're usually inspired by their own experiences, right? Maybe a lot of it is nature, right? How they see different things in the world, right? So this is especially important for like people like concept artists, right? People who are about ideas, right? And then taking those ideas and implementing them, right? You don't really want to become derivative, okay? And I feel like that's something that we're seeing a lot today, right? Not just in art, but in just media in general, where it's just just more regurgitation of things that we've seen before. Like, you know, we're in the greatest hits collection time right now. So I think what I'm trying to say is the best inspiration, right, comes from the world, okay, from your world, right, and your ideas, right? And usually, like, of course, when you're first starting out, you'll have like a direction point, or you have like this one artist that inspires you, or like your favorite artist, and you're like, I want to emulate them, right? But it comes to a certain point where, like, either you've become really successful at emulating that you're basically copying, right? Or you've decided, like, you've gained more inspirations, and now you've kind of become your own thing, right? Which is where you want to be, right? You don't want to be a copycat. You don't want to be just a 10-cent version of whoever, right? You want to be your own artist, right? And that's where the most powerful work is made, right? You really want to focus on things that you really care about. You know what I mean? Like things that really matter to you, right? And like, but I would say it has to be something personal, right? When it's something personal, that's when you start really hitting home. You know what I mean? And you want to start looking at the universal themes, right? So like, in art, there are often repeating themes, right? Like fertility, right? Death, religion, you know, love, right? Hate, anger, all that stuff, right? So these universal themes, right? They affect all of us, right? But they could affect you specifically in a certain way, right? Let's say like maybe one of your relatives died and you were really close with them, right? And you want to draw from that, right? Like often artists will use the negativity in their life, right, to draw inspiration from, and like to almost internalize and output what they want, and like it's almost like getting your feelings out, right? Maybe you're not very good at like expressing yourself or something, or your art is a good outlet for that expression, right? Or like feel it like you, like if you're like feeling all this pain and anger, dude, you know, like you could put it into your painting, right? And take that energy and put it into the painting, right? And if that's like, if that painting is like, you know, angry, and, you know, like if it has the same feeling that you're feeling, right? It could level up your work, you know what I mean? Or at least at the very least give your work a certain emotion to it, you know what I mean? So a lot of people, they're inspired by skill, right? And like that's good, you know what I mean? Skill is something that you really, that it's the only, honestly, it's like the only thing that you could like work on, you know what I mean? Like, you know, of course there's like just different aspects of the skill, right? But skill is the one thing that you could just keep leveling up, you know what I mean? Like everything else is kind of just like up to you as a person, right? Okay, but when it comes down to it, skill is more of just like the technical side of things, right? Inspiration comes from the more emotional side, from the thinker side, you know what I mean? The conceptual side. So what I recommend is expanding your how you view art, basically, right? And where your inspirations come from, right? So before, you know, like I usually, right, especially for young artists, they will really be inspired by people who are technically proficient, right? Extremely technically proficient, right? And that's fine because their skill is low. That's like almost, maybe it's an insecurity they have, or maybe it's something that that in their eyes, that like if they could get that good, you know, then that would be it, right? And so, like, you know, and that's fine. That's fine. You can start that way, right? But as you move on in your artist journey, I think it's important to start looking at other artists, right? Artists who may not be super technically inclined, you know what I mean? But their work like speaks to you for some reason, right? Think about like the French Impressionists, right? Some of their work is really like messy and archaic, right? Or like they're not so concerned about making the perfect render, you know what I mean? And often, if you look at that work, you'll find that there's almost like a mysteriousness about it, or a feeling, right? And that feeling is very important, right? That is something that is more primal, right? And that's what I encourage you to draw from, like the primal love, you know what I mean? Like if you look at a nature scene, right, you're like, that's so beautiful, right? But I don't really know why, but there's something about it. And, you know, you take a snapshot and you're like, okay, I can make a piece out of this, right? That's good. You know, it's like, follow your instincts, right? Learn to trust your own decisions, right? And if you do that, you could start getting inspired by the world, right? By the things that are just right in front of you. You know what I mean? Things that you enjoy. Hey, like, what do I like? You know, what are my things that are like important to me? Like, do I like color more? Do I like render more? You know what I mean? Do I like a darker composition or a lighter composition, right? And and that's besides from the artists that you like, right? Getting inspired by things that you enjoy, right? And a part of that comes from, you know, and like how you compose things, right? There you go. That's what I'm trying to get at. At the end of the day, right, it's all about what you consider beautiful, right? And like maybe you have a very warped sense of beauty, right? Like there's a lot of artists who are very macabre, right? Or they like to draw very dark things, right? But maybe themselves, they're not like a super dark person, right? Maybe like there's a part of your mind, a very like unconscious part of your brain that has like all these like, you know, thoughts or something, or like a feeling that you want to capture, right? And that's when you start deriving inspiration from yourself, right? What do you want to say, what you want to put out, right? And that's where you want to be, honestly, right? Of course, you know, you have other artists, other subject matters, you know, like just work that you enjoy, right? And that's all gonna be like what you want that to be is like a big stew, right? Like, you know, like there's all these ingredients in it, all this stuff in it, and it's all just kind of like melting into one conglomeration that is you, right? And like, you know, of course you want, like, maybe you could filter, you could put your ideas through the filter of another artist, right? But that's not going to get you the most powerful work, right? The most powerful work is the stuff that you derive from yourself, right? And from your ideas, your inspiration, right? And of course that's naturally how it's going to be, right? And then of course, you know, you got to work on your skill, you got to work on this and that, right? But inspiration, the source of it, okay, that it matters, okay, it matters, right? So don't worry about copying people, don't worry about doing what other people think are successful, right? You could use it as a framework to get yourself started, right? But eventually you want to get off that and understand that maybe that's not exactly you, but like someone you're emulating, right? And not saying like, you know, you don't enjoy those things. Of course you enjoy those things. Like that's why you copied it, right? That's why you derived inspiration from it, right? But like I said, you want to start looking internally, right? And externally, right? But at the real world, not other artists, okay? Not properties that you like, oh, I really like the show or anything. Of course, that's all good. That's all good stuff, right? Fiction and non-fiction, that like, you know, that all like it's all great for the stew, you know what I mean? But if you really want to make something that's yours, right? You, right? You gotta start developing your taste, your sensibilities, right? And exploring that. You're like, and then you're like, okay, I get really inspired. Like, okay, so like a friend of mine, right? So he started gardening recently, right? And he's another artist, right? He's been really getting into gardening, right? And this is something that's just like brought him great joy, right? And so in that great joy, right, he felt inspiration, and so he wanted to start painting things from his garden, you know what I mean? Like, and like there's something really heartfelt about that, right? And maybe most people aren't gonna like feel inspired by it, right? But maybe someone who's like a gardener is like I love that cucumber or something. I love that the way these tomatoes are composed or some shit, you know what I mean? Or these flowers, right? And that's how you start making work that speaks to yourself and will definitely speak to others, right? And it no longer really becomes about like, oh, is this image like super good, right? Or is this image like what I want it to be, you know what I mean? Of course, like that's always going to be there, right? But it's more about like, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to show someone, you know what I mean? It's very like, you know, it's very primal, right? And like that's the key, dude. That's the key. It's like, you know, like a caveman thing, right? Like something that activates in like the back of the brain, you know, the reptile brain, that just like invokes like an emotion or an idea, right? And that's really what you want to focus on, you know what I mean? That's the good stuff, right? That's the stuff that like everyone draws from, and it's 100% original, you know what I mean? Right? Like you can, like, no one could say like, oh, you're a copycat of this artist, right? Or you're like, you know, you're derivative of someone else's piece, because you're deriving stuff from the world and yourself, right? And then like, even if they say like, hey, you're like, you have a similar art style as someone else, maybe your what you're inspired by changes it, you know, or your ideas change it. So it's like, hey, dude, this is all you, dude. This is all yours, okay? Which is exactly where you want to be, okay? That's what it's all about, right? Yeah, of course we'll be talking about this more, but I think that's good enough for this video, right? So please, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my prints and Patreon if you want to support the channel. Leave a comment, tell me how you guys are inspired by, like, what are you guys inspired by, right? Or what have you found in your inspirational journey yourself, right? Yeah, leave that comment, ring that bell, all that bullshit, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.